it's just a remarkable contrast where you have basically one political party that cares nothing about the system, cares nothing about the law, cares nothing about the Constitution, cares nothing about justice, but only cares about supporting one man who is irretrievably demented and depraved and is now a convicted felon, in addition to being an adjudicated rapist and fraudster.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to George Conway Explains It All to Sarah. I'm Sarah Longwell, publisher of The Bulwark, and because I'm not a lawyer, that's my good friend George Conway from the Society for the Rule of Law to come explain the legal news to me. George, 1 week since conviction, how you feeling?
I feel 34 times better than usual.
That's good. That's good. I'm excited to hear it.
Exactly 34, not 33, not 35, but 34 times better than usual.
Okay,
and I
it's a
usually
specific
feel pretty
number.
Good. Yeah, 34. Yeah, it's my favorite number.
When we did the emergency pod,
I think I'm going to fly to Vegas and just sort of put all
Play
my money
34?
on 34 for a while.
Okay,
Yeah.
lucky number.
Yeah.
When we did the emergency pod right after the conviction, you were very like, yeah, guys, I told you this was going to happen.
I did.
And you
There is videographic and audio evidence that I did say this was going to happen.
Yeah, so you were pretty like circumspect. You weren't jumping up and down. You weren't excited. Did you win? You win any bets with people?
Yes, I did win a bet. I won a bet. I've never met him, but I occasionally correspond with Mark Cuban on X or
Whatever.
by DMs, and he said a few weeks ago, I think it was mid-April, and I'd forgotten about this. He said he thought there was going to be a hung jury no matter what, and I said, no, juries don't really hang that often. I mean, it's possible you can get a MAGA type, but I had just watched the jury selection. I thought this was a pretty good Manhattan jury, and I didn't see any ringers. And it's really hard to hang a jury anyway. I think I probably said that in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
You have to really be out there and willing to basically take the abuse of 11 people who are disagreeing with you. And I said, I don't think it's going to hang. I think he's going to go down. And that was before some of the evidence came in. And he goes, oh, I'd bet any amount of money on that. And of course, you don't want to bet any amount of money with Mark Cuban. So he said $1, and I said, and then he said dinner, and fine. So he owes me a meal.
Well, I hope he takes you somewhere very nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually going
time.
up. I'm going up to see on my own dime. I was going up to see Celtics Mavericks game on Sunday, and maybe he can get me lunch there or something. I don't know. I just want to meet the guy.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
And to say I was right.
I mean, that might make dinner like less enjoyable for him. Maybe tone it down a notch.
I guess those will go. My free Mavericks tickets will go out the door next year. Okay, that's fine.
So since the verdict, Republicans have been on just a tear. They are like rending garments, clutching pearls. We live in a banana republic.
Yeah.
The judicial system has failed
meanwhile,
entirely.
they're trying to elect the chief banana, putting him back.
Yeah.
But okay, we live in a banana republic.
So what do you make of the Republican response to this?
I am running out of words to express disgrace and contempt and vileness and mendacity to describe these people.
You've still got a few words.
Those are lots of words. There are just no good words to describe it. I mean, these people, first of all, they're enormous hypocrites, because if a Democrat had ever done 1/50th of what Trump has done, or zero, as we can show by, their continual ranting and raving about the Biden crime family, they would be up in arms, and they would be praising these prosecutions. And then, they're just lying. They're just lying about they're lying about the facts. They're lying about the law. They're ignoring, the fact that there was a fair jury trial. You can't even get them to talk about what happened. I mean, if you ask Speaker Johnson, I think they tried to ask him, well, what this bit about the porn star and the hush money, you want to tell us what you think of that? And he's, no. They can't. They just refuse to engage on the merits, and they just they lie about everything, and they lie about they contend that the charges weren't grounded in law. They contend that the jury didn't know what it was supposed to be convicting on, and it's like, no, this was a pretty simple, clear case at the end of the day, and the only reason why it was why it's unique and kind of unusual is because of its unusual facts and involves an unusual defendant. But the legal theory that the legal basis, which is that you can't falsify records in New York, and then it's a felony when you do it to cover up another crime, is, it's been applied in any number of contexts. This is just an unusual context in the sense that how many presidential candidates are dumb enough to pay off a porn star to hush her up, and they don't stay hushed, and then engage in all of this incredible fraudulent documentation to cover it up.
So one of the things that has been kind of the central argument is everybody, like on Twitter or what, they'll be like, what's the fundamental crime? What's the underlying crime? And so answer that.
Well, the underlying crime is you cannot falsify business records in the state of New York.
That's a felony?
It's at a minimum, it's a misdemeanor if it's falsification of documents in the second degree. And if it's in the first degree, that's a felony, a Class C felony. And what makes, the dividing line between second degree falsification of documents and first degree falsification of documents is whether you were doing, what is your intent, whether you were doing it with the intent to cover up some other crime.
And the crime is the FEC
and not actually
violation?
some other illegality or some other crime to solicit votes through unlawful means in the state of New York. And the unlawful means here was, there was a federal election campaign violation, there were tax violations, there was, this was designed to cover up election fraud. And that's a pretty simple theory, and that's what was charged to the jury, and that's what they found. And there was no question about it, because you had this guy who was basically, he wanted to pay off Stormy Daniels $130,000. He managed to do it through using a cutout, which is illegal under the Federal Election Campaign Act. And then they committed a tax violation to cover that up, to make it look like it was something other than what it was, which was a reimbursement for a payoff. They pretended it was income to him, so they committed tax fraud by engaging, by grossing up the amount. It was, the kind of aggravated falsification of books and records that was exactly meant to fall within the purview of the first degree falsification of business prohibition. Falsification of business records prohibition.
I saw you on CNN get into it with Scott Jennings, because his point was what?
I have to go back and remember, but it was just, he basically was, the jury wasn't even charged, wasn't even told what the underlying crime, I forget exactly what it was, but it was just outright false. It was just outright false, and it was just talking points straight from Mar-a-Lago. And they all repeat this stuff, and he's not a lawyer. He had no idea what he was talking about, and it was just, they just spout out the lie of the day, and that they all think they can just say the same things and just repeat it, and then it becomes fact. I just got tired of that, and I got tired of the fact that CNN is paying for this. I mean, I get that there are if I'm running a network, I'm running a television show, I'm running a newspaper, I want to have opposing views. But when one side is continually just saying things that are untrue, unsupported in law, unsupported in fact, saying that the trial was rigged, saying this, you're just basically casting aspersions on the rule of law. You have to call that out.
Yeah. Let me just, one of the things that it really strikes me, right, the way that the Republicans are talking about it is they're using language like rigged, right? It's a rigged jury or two-tier justice system. And it's amazing to me that basically any institution that we have in this country that has sought accountability for Donald Trump, if it's the press, it's fake news. If it's, the civil service or the FBI, they're the deep state. If it's an election, it's rigged. If it's a jury trial, it's, now it's rigged, or it's two-tier justice. Whatever. They basically tear down any institution that is meant to hold Trump accountable. And many of them, I mean, even cops, it's like cops try to, go after the January 6th insurrectionists, and now they're the deep state. The January 6th committee, those are all rhinos and Dems. Yeah. There is no institution that they will allow to hold Trump accountable, including the courts.
Right. I mean, it's basically they are modeling Trump, and you basically have an entire political party that models Trump, and you have millions of Americans who are now modeling Trump, and Trump is, the ultimate example of a bad actor. And it reminds me, if you remember ever hearing the story that I think it was Leslie Stahl told about, they were not on camera, but they were off camera at and had a conversation where they were discussing why Trump always trashes the media. And he basically said, you know, one of these times when he can be honest when he's at his most malevolent. And Trump said to Leslie Stahl, you know, I trash you, I attack the media so that when they say bad things about me, no one will believe them.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And that is sort of, you can see, that's what he did. That's how we knew he was going to claim election fraud in 2020. He basically was prefacing it all year that this election's not going to be fair. Maybe we should put it off.
Yeah.
And he's, you know, that's what he did at this trial. He knew he was going to lose. And the closer he got to the point of where he knew he was losing, the more he attacked the court. And that's what, you know, that basically it's him versus our institutions. It's him versus the truth. It's him versus reality. And he will basically trash everything in order to vindicate himself, in order to protect himself from consequences. And, you know, the thing that is the most horrifying about the last 7 years is that they've got millions of people adhere to this mantra. And you've got intelligent people, educated people, skilled professionals, you know, whether they be, you know, members of Congress or political consultants or commentators who just basically have accepted this as a way of life and that they have to go along with this, and they go along with it.
Trump could not do it alone. He could not do it without this entire ecosystem.
And that's why you never,
coming to his
right.
defense.
And if you talk to me in 2017, I didn't have any idea that he was so bad.
Right.
I mean, you guys did, to your credit. But I thought that even if he were that bad, he'd never get away with it because people would just say, oh, come on, stop.
Dude, I remember this. One of the things that I just like is seared in my brain is the email that I wrote to my friends right after Trump was elected, where I said, it's going to be okay. Republicans are serious people. They will not let him, you know, tear this country apart.
But
like they will.
yeah.
And for like a half a second with the Mueller investigation where they, you know, kept him from firing Mueller originally, I was like, see, like Republicans are kind of holding the line. And then one by one, whether it was Jeff Flake, whatever, they were defenestrated from the party, and ultimately everybody went along with him.
Yeah, it's funny because that went the opposite. What you were describing was what I believed would happen. I didn't think he was that. I didn't realize how bad he was, but I thought that if you were that bad, what you described is that sooner or later people would say stop. And exactly the opposite happened. It's sort of like, you know, nails on a chalkboard. For me, it's like nails on a chalkboard. They just get worse and worse, and I can't stand it more and more. These people got used to the nails on the chalkboard.
They're frogs in the pot, the boiling water.
Yeah, frogs in the pot.
Yeah.
You use the metaphor of your choice, but they got used to it. They decided they wanted to sit there in the boiling pot. I mean, there's the face leopard metaphor. We got all sorts of metaphors.
I never thought they'd eat my face.
Yeah,
said the
sure.
head of the face leopard eating party.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I want to do something actually. We did a focus group like the day after the conviction with two-time Trump voters, but these were voters who kind of were out on Trump after January 6th. They really were not fans of him. And I want to play you just a little bit of what they said. We did a whole episode for the focus group podcast this Saturday, which people should go listen to. But I just want to give you a taste.
I want criminals to go to jail. Like Bob Menendez is a Democrat from New Jersey, and he's being tried by Biden's DOJ because he's criminal. So criminals should not be in charge. If they violate the laws, then they should be subject to exactly the same rules that all of us are expected to abide to.
He should serve jail time, pay the penalty for the crime. We all know what's going to happen. They're going to negotiate and renegotiate. And I mean, he's not going to serve any time, but he'll get more time on television right here at election time.
All right, so that's just a couple sound bites, but there's two things in there I want to draw attention to. So the woman who said, I want criminals to go to jail, I would say from the two-time Trump voters, who are not very favorable toward him, they were all, they sort of said they thought that the trial was politicized, but they also thought, hey, a jury heard all the evidence, they made the choice, I think it's good that he got convicted, I respect the decision, and criminals should go to jail. That was like one genre of comments. Does that make you feel, how's that make you feel?
Makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I like that. I mean, that's the ultimate test is whether or not what the jury found. They weren't in the courtroom. They understand that, but they understand that if 12 people picked at random, that's the basis for our system. That's the basis for our criminal justice system. And there was no basis on which to challenge this verdict as being unfair or unjust. And so they accept it. And that's what we are supposed to do as citizens. Now, if he has an argument for error on appeal, he's allowed to assert that. But we accept the verdicts of our criminal justice system. We accept the verdicts in our civil justice system. We accept our system to be fair. And if we don't like the results in a particular case, we can criticize the results in a particular case, but we don't attack the system. I mean, this should be just, civics 101, and kudos to this woman for recognizing the basic truth, which is that we depend on this system and we need to support the system. And if Donald Trump is a criminal and he's convicted of a crime, well, then he's got to pay the price that everyone else would have to pay. You or I would be, we would never have gotten away with any of this.
Yeah. Well, then there's the second genre, right, I would say, of comments that we got where people are like, yes, I'm glad he got convicted, but I don't think he'll do any jail time. I don't think, they sort of felt like it would get soft pedaled because of who he is.
I mean, that's sort of a problem in terms of the corrosive effect that Trump has had on perceptions of our system of justice and the rule of law, is that he gets away with everything. He's gotten away with everything his entire life. And the fact of the matter is that there is truth in that, but that's coming to an end. I mean, every time he is tested in a court of law, basically he comes out on the wrong end. I mean, he may get a few breaks here and there, and he may win a couple of things along the way, but most of the time he's getting hammered. He got hammered in that civil case involving his business to the tune of basically $500 million. He got hammered in the rape and defamation cases that E.G. and Carroll brought, and now he's been held, his company was held basically criminally liable for its crimes. And now he personally has been held criminally liable, or will be held criminally liable, has been found to be convicted of 34 felonies. And in terms of whether or not he's going to do jail time, I think he will. I think ultimately he will if he's not elected president. I think it's going to be very difficult for this judge not to sentence Donald Trump to some jail time. And I understand that that he's not a violent offender, and he's a first-time offender. But this man was held in contempt by this court 10 times for violating court orders. He did nothing but flout the authority of the court. He has shown, and he's going to absolutely show zero acceptance of responsibility, zero remorse for the crimes that he committed, and that all of those factors are going to weigh in favor of some jail time. I don't know that it's going to be 4 years, which is what you could have on any one of these 34 counts, but you could easily see him getting a year or two, or even maybe more than that.
Hey, let me ask you something about Marchand. I forgot that I wanted to know this, but now that you're talking about him, one of the other things that came up was that this judge had given like a small amount of money to Democrats at some point. Is that so? The Republicans are saying he should have recused himself. Is that right?
No, because basically this was adjudicated. I mean, this was adjudicated by that he was he was warned about that. I think the ultimate thing by the whatever judicial conduct authority there is, but he wasn't found to engage in an intentional violation. And it was a small amount of money. And the fact of the matter is, he conducted this trial with impeccable fairness. So I don't see how he could have conducted the trial more fairly and frank. I think he gave the guy a break. I probably would have thrown the guy in jail for some of those contempt violations. At least let him sit in a holding tank for a few hours.
I know you would have. Hey, speaking of that, so Trump's lawyers are asking Marchand to lift Trump's gag order, saying there's nothing to justify continued restrictions on the First Amendment rights of President Trump, and that Trump is entitled to unrestrained campaign activity. What do you think he's going to do? Well,
I think it may well be that at this point the restrictions on commenting on witnesses may be lifted. Again, I haven't studied what the First Amendment law on this is, but I have a feeling that what it would a reasonable result here would be, okay, he can start trashing on Michael Cohen if he wants to do it again, because there's no danger. Conceivably there could be a retrial if somehow he wins on appeal, but that's pretty remote. He can start trashing on witnesses again, but he cannot trash on the jurors. And that's the thing I would be most concerned with, because we cannot have a system where jurors are subjected to retribution by the mob,
Yeah.
incited by a criminal.
Yeah.
And, so I think there are going to be some restrictions that remain.
We know Trump loves retribution. Okay, and then speaking of Trump, so he's also complaining about the sentencing in July, that's what's happening because it's happening right before convention, like days before. But they asked for that date originally.
Literally, if you go through the transcript, they said, we think somewhere early to mid-July would be best, Your Honor. They literally said that to him, and he basically said, okay, July 11th. I don't know what their complaint is. I mean, it's literally his lawyers did that in front of the judge and with Donald Trump sitting there at counsel table. He could have reached over to his lawyer who was at the podium. He sat next to where the lawyer was on the podium. He could have grabbed him and said, no. He didn't do that. He's just
do you think they'd move it?
What?
Would they move it now? Would they do
No,
the
it's
sentencing?
done.
No,
It's
it's done.
It's
They're gonna
done.
do it.
No, he's just a pathological liar. He lies. He lied about that, that it was done for political effect, even though his lawyers basically asked for that date. He lied about the temperature in the courtroom, as we went.
That's right.
Lied about the security outside the courtroom. He just spouts out lies. I mean, there is no untruth that he will not spout out if it just occurs to him at a given moment that it's helpful to say something.
You know what is not a lie? That perfect jeans are great.
Many people are saying this.
Many people are saying our
people.
sponsor today is one of your favorites. It is the Perfect Jean. The Perfect Jean makes great-looking, perfect-fitting jeans that are as comfortable as sweatpants. Is that true? They're comfortable as sweatpants?
Yes, these are I'm wearing them right now, and they're very comfortable. Nice.
Oh, they feel great.
Yeah,
Look at that.
yeah.
Look how stretchy.
Yeah, they are
With
stretchy.
6 different fits, waist
But
sizes from 26 to 50, and lengths from 26 to 38, the Perfect Jean has every type of body covered. You have a pair, George. How do you like them?
I have multiple pairs. I have like 3 or 4 now.
They keep sending them to you, huh?
No, I mean, I got 1 free pair.
And then you bought more?
I think I should have gotten like 10. But
Yeah.
okay, they gave me 1. And then I ordered 3 or 4 more. So they made money off of me.
Nice. Well, the Perfect Jean doesn't stop there, though. They've revolutionized T-shirts as well. The Perfect Tee is soft as butter without shrinking in the wash like all your other tees. It's just perfect. And they always have free shipping, exchanges, and returns, so you can have peace of mind knowing that your order is completely risk-free. For a limited time, our listeners get 15% off their first order plus free shipping at theperfectjean.nyc or Google The Perfect Jean and use code AskGeorge15 for 15% off. It's finally time to ditch uncomfortable jeans by going to theperfectjean.nyc. Our listeners get 15% off your first order plus free shipping, free returns, and free exchanges when you use code AskGeorge15 at checkout. That's 15% for new customers at theperfectjean.nyc with promo code AskGeorge15. After you purchase, they'll ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them we sent you. F your khakis and get the perfect
They
jean.
do put that. The website does say,
I
say
don't.
fuck your khakis. Yes, it does say that.
F star parentheses K.
Yes.
Your khakis and get the perfect jean.
Look, it's Perfect Jeans NYC.
Yeah.
It's like, this is New York language there.
Okay, well.
Okay? And the other reason why you should buy, they're from New York, and we want to support New York. That people are saying that because of these convictions, all the business is going to go out in New York. That ain't true. Show them what's true by buying these Perfect Jeans from New York.
Okay, I'm just worried about all of our young listeners, our 6 and 7-year-old listeners who might,
Well,
I just language. Barry's going to believe it.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right. So just very quickly, I want to run through the status of the other cases because I do want to ask you about Eileen Cannon and the classified documents prosecution. So, as usual, Cannon's been ineptly shuffling everything around.
Yeah.
She had hearings scheduled for June 21st, 24th, and 25th, but this week she decided to order completely different hearings on those days on completely different issues. So those hearings are now going to be about Trump's argument that Jack Smith was a legally appointed special counsel and about Jack Smith's gag order request. So whatever. Is this the same ineptitude and delay we've seen from Cannon throughout?
Yes. and I don't even know where to start. I mean, the whole bit about Jack Smith's appointment being unconstitutional, this is a bad argument that a friend of mine, actually, a longtime friend, maybe he doesn't consider me a friend, it was Steve Calabrese, who was one of the founders of the Federal Society, trotted out in 2017 to attack the Mueller investigation. And with allowing amici curiae to participate, it's like this should have been just denied. And if five sentence order or a 5-page opinion
And
already.
the amici thing is that what it says, former attorneys general Ed Meese, Michael McCasey, and the Steve Calabresi, like they're allowed to submit.
Yeah, they're going to have a law professor, I think, argue this for them, and they're going to make arguments. But on the other hand, there are some people. I joined a brief, and the person who signed that brief is going to argue against the ridiculous arguments that are being made to challenge the constitutionality of special counsel. But it's just a giant wasteful exercise on a frivolous issue, and this is part of the program of delay that has essentially been imposed on this case. I mean, every little issue that's raised, regardless of its merit, is getting this extended, time-consuming treatment. And I think it's a combination of incompetence and bias. I just can't explain it any other way. It's just mystifying to me.
Yeah. So that's not going forward. Speaking of special counsels, Biden's DOJ is currently trying Biden Sutton, federal court in Delaware.
It just
You've been
started.
following any of that Hunter stuff?
Not that closely. I mean, I just don't think it's really an important case for the Republic, except to demonstrate the good faith of prosecutors and the Justice Department. I mean, I think there are a lot of good arguments that Hunter Biden shouldn't be prosecuted, that he's being prosecuted for something that typically isn't prosecuted. But the fact of the matter that this proceeding is being carried out without any intervention by the President of the United States, even either legally or in terms of just criticism, just shows you the difference between people who respect the law and respect the legal process and respect the rule of law versus the Trumpists who basically will attack it whenever they don't like the result. I mean, I can't imagine Joe Biden thinks it's fair that his son's being prosecuted by the Department of Justice. And it's his Department of Justice under his attorney general. But you don't hear him attacking the prosecutors. You don't hear him saying it's a witch hunt. You don't hear him saying, oh, it's cold in the courtroom, my poor son.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't hear him saying any of that. And it just tells you, it shows you something. It shows you something that, and there are arguments, there are legitimate arguments as to why this prosecution should not have been brought. But those are arguments for the court. Those are arguments for the courts to decide.
Here's one thing I think is probably true. It is probably true that Donald Trump, had he not been the president, would not have been tried for things like the Stormy Daniels hush money payment. And hold on, and then Hunter would likely not be being tried for this were his father not the president. But here's the thing. Donald Trump committed a lot of crimes.
Correct.
And then ran for president.
Correct.
When you've made this point before that oftentimes, or most of the time, when you do lots of crimes, you don't run for higher office and engage in a lot more scrutiny, because inviting that scrutiny
It's a bad idea.
Bad idea. Hunter Biden's dad ran for president.
Yeah, well, I feel bad for him in that sense. But look, I mean, the thing.
I'm not saying he's a great guy, because I don't think he is.
Look, Donald Trump. There may be things that Donald Trump wouldn't have been prosecuted for had he not run for public office. But the fact of the matter is, he's gotten away with a lot because he's held public office.
Yeah.
You cited as an example the state prosecution where he was just convicted of 34 felonies. I mean, John Edwards was prosecuted.
Yeah.
For something very, very similar. There just was less evidence. And so the jury reached an acquittal on one count and then hung on all the other counts. And the reason why was it wasn't because the legal theory was bad. I mean, he was basically, what happened was there was a bunch of money taken from this old rich lady to pay off Riel Hunter.
Speaking of hunters.
Who was John Edwards' baby mama. That case went down because there just wasn't enough evidence. The woman who gave the money was like non corpus mentis. He was like 100 years old, and they didn't have a paper trail the way they had for Trump.
But also, Democrats ended his career. He was done after that, right?
And
Nobody would touch that guy.
Not only that, Edwards, after the partial acquittal and hung jury, took responsibility, said, I shouldn't have done that. That was bad judgment. It was terrible. And I accept responsibility for what I did was wrong, which is I think that was probably one of the reasons why he wasn't prosecuted again. Mm-hmm. It's just a remarkable contrast where you have basically one political party that cares nothing about the system, cares nothing about the law, cares nothing about the Constitution, cares nothing about justice, but only cares about supporting one man who is irretrievably demented and depraved and is now a convicted felon, in addition to being an adjudicated rapist and fraudster.
And they do it all while wrapping themselves in the flag and waving the Constitution around as though they're defending it. Okay, let's move on to Georgia.
You got me started again.
I know. We almost are through.
Okay.
So, as a reminder, folks, the Georgia election interference prosecution is on hold while an appellate court reviews the Fani Willis disqualification question. This week, the appellate court said that oral argument would tentatively be scheduled for October 4th. So that's it. It's like DOA, right?
That case has been DOA for a while in terms of whether or not it would be tried in 2024. I still think that there isn't a substantial basis to conclude that in any way that the defendants were prejudiced by this unfortunate brouhaha about Fani Willis and her ex-boyfriend and co-prosecutor. And I again, as I've said, we've had this discussion before. It was just not a good idea by Fani Willis, and she should have owned up to it immediately and gotten rid of the guy and said no harm, no foul. But she just made it worse for herself, and this is the price that we're paying. Is this delay? It was just the price that we're paying for, frankly, her bad judgment is the delay of the cause of justice. I think in the end the case will get tried. I think they should win the appeal. Maybe it'll go up to the Georgia Supreme Court. I don't know, but there's, these are serious crimes under Georgia law. The grand jury so found. This was an attempt to basically steal Georgia's 16 electoral votes through lies and intimidation and fraud, and the notion that it is being held up because of this completely unnecessary missteps and misjudgments. I think is greatly unfortunate, and I don't mean to come down too hard on Fani Willis, because I think she deserves a lot of credit for her courage in stepping forward and bringing the case. But man, what an own goal.
Yeah. And just as we wrap up, the January 6th election interference prosecution in D.C. is on hold pending a decision from the Supreme Court on whether Trump is immune from prosecution, and we're going to get that opinion sometime this month.
Yeah, probably. I suspect the last day of the term, June 25th or so.
Okay, we'll talk about it then. George, as always, thanks for explaining the legal news to me and our listeners. Don't forget to hit subscribe, leave us a review on your podcast app, email us at askgeorge@thebulwark.com, and we will see you next week.
Well, George Conway, he's a man with a plan. Got to sit down with Sarah Longwell, take a stand, explain all the legal problems they're piling high. With Donald Trump, oh my, oh my, oh my. He said, Sarah, let me break it down for you. There's obstruction of justice, corruption too, the legal tangles and troubles, they're growing fast. It's a storm that's gonna last and last. Oh, Conway, tell them well all about it. Those legal problems can't live without it. From the emoluments to the Russian ties. Oh, Sarah, listen close.